Hello and welcome to The Premise.
Bienvenidos, mi amigos.
I'm Jeniffer Thompson.
And I'm Chad Thompson.
And this is, season 3?
Season 3.
Wow. We are in season 3 of getting to the story behind the storyteller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
That's what we do here on The Premise.
So sit back, relax.
Listen
to your 8 tracks. I dig you like an old soul record.
Enjoy a cup of tea, a glass of wine, a shot, whatever.
And you do you.
You do you. We'll do us.
No judgment here.
We'll do us. Hello and welcome to The Premise. I'm here with Chad. Hello, Chad.
Hello.
How are you?
All right.
Fair to middling, as they say.
Expecting kittens.
We are expecting
Not me
kittens.
personally, but...
Yeah, thank God. That'd be weird.
Right?
So, but I'm really excited about our guest today. We have Julie Slavinsky and Adrian Newell of Warwick's Books. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm really excited about today's podcast.
It's going to be good.
We're going to kind of get down to the secrets behind how to get into a bookstore. What makes a bookseller? How does the machine work?
Behind the curtain.
Exactly. We're going to pull back the curtains. I like it.
Or see how the sausage is made, which,
That's another way to say
gross,
it.
But that's
Grosser.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe it is that way.
Curtains are soft and plush.
Is a
Well,
little
that's
bit.
true. It's a little messy, isn't it? Hopefully not that messy.
Yeah.
You've made sausage before.
Oh, God. It was a disaster.
They were super dry. Yeah, we decided we wanted to make really healthy sausages. And let me tell you, sausages,
No.
Should not
Shouldn't
be healthy.
No.
ever.
Ever.
No.
Just
Do not cut the fat content.
never.
It doesn't work.
So there you go. Well, Julie,
Yes.
tell us what you do for Warwick's and a little bit of how long you've been there.
Okay. I'm the director of events at Warwick's, and I've been there for what year is it? So I've been there for 12 years this year and 11 years doing the events. for Warwick's.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Adrian, what do you do for Warwick's?
I do all of the adult book buying for
Nice.
the store and
Okay.
then managing the kind of day-to-day operations.
And you've been there for how many years?
33?
That is incredible. That is quite a career.
I thought 12 was good.
I thought 12 was good too. I was
Show
impressed.
off.
No, Jesus.
And she's going to one up you on this one.
I'm trying to retire, but
Yeah.
it's not going well.
It's not going well.
Well, when you've been doing something so well for so long, it's hard to find a replacement. Well, everyone, all you listeners, if you know anyone who wants to be a book buyer with lots of experience,
With experience, please.
you know where to go.
Therein lies the issue.
So, Julie, I want to ask you, tell us a little bit about Warwick's.
Oh, I think the 33-year-old person over here should.
All right.
No,
Adrian.
I get it.
Warwick's is the oldest continuously owned, family-owned and operated bookstore in the country. There are other stores that are older than us, but they have not been owned by the same family or have not been a bookstore the entire time. And Nancy Warwick, 4th generation, is the current owner. She and her sister, Kathy Warwick. Although Nancy is there every day and, is, I guess, the principal partner.
Very
if you wanna
involved.
Call it that.
Yeah.
Very involved. She does all the buying for the gift side and cards and other things like that. So it's been in La Jolla since
30s, right?
since the 30s.
Oh, wow.
In the location that we're currently in,
Yeah.
but it started in Mankato, Minnesota.
Wow. And they just decided to up and move to beautiful, sunny La Jolla, California.
I was going to say, you ever been to Mankato?
I have not. Have you?
No.
Oh.
But I've been to Minnesota.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I'd rather be in La Jolla.
I mean, when you think about it, if you think about San Diego businesses, we're probably one of the oldest businesses in
Right?
San Diego.
Yeah.
Because we've been here since the 30s. So be probably hard pressed to find an older business in San Diego.
Agreed. Yeah. 1896. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Warwick's was founded in. That's incredible.
And carried books the whole time, because that was the thing, too.
Correct.
That people sometimes, when you think about 1896,
Mm-hmm.
it was probably a mercantile type of a store.
I think back in the day they carried wallpaper
Oh, wow. Cool. Wallpaper's back
for
in.
a while.
And books.
Yeah.
Always
cool.
a
Always
component.
books.
Always the
Yeah.
books. I love that it's passed down through the generations. Warwick's is kind of the holy grail of bookstores in San Diego. I mean, we have amazing bookstores in
We
San
do.
Diego. Lots of great bookstores.
Yes.
But Warwick's is sort of like if you get your book in Warwick's, you sort of made it. You feel like you've really accomplished something.
Well, I mean, even though the store it's big, but it's not big. And I'm going to use a word that Adrian hates, but it's true. And you do a fantastic job of it.
Thank you.
The curating and making sure that what is there is relevant on a really broad spectrum.
That's hard to do.
Super hard to do.
Yeah.
That's why we haven't found a replacement.
That's why we haven't found a replacement. Yeah.
Well, and it's even harder because of COVID. I've always had one or two booksellers who have helped me, either by a specific category. John Hughes, who was with us for quite some time, did all the university press buying. Way smarter and better at that than I'll ever be. But I've always felt it was important to have more than one point of view and perspective.
Yeah.
So I've kind of missed that.
So are you the only book buyer now in the adult section?
Currently.
Okay. But do you take opinions from staff?
Yes.
So tell us, how do you decide what books you're going to carry?
Well,
I know it's a big question.
it is. And I'm in a buying cycle right now for summer. So typically there are two and a short cycle. So in May, I'll start buying for fall. It's a combination of things. Everything's gone digital, so instead of paper catalogs, I now go to Edelweiss, which is a digital platform for catalogs for publishers. And my reps will send me a markup, and I will look at their markup notes. And then I also look at...
Wait, tell us what a markup is.
It's just a catalog with their annotations.
They're like, hey, this book's going to be hot. You want this book.
Or publicity information.
Okay.
Or,
Well, let's step back a minute, though, and let's talk volume. Because let's talk about how many titles for just one publisher, for one season. And let's look at what seasons are. I mean, books are kind of like clothes. So they have a season.
Totally.
So pick one publisher and...
So summer and fall are always the two biggest seasons. So, for instance, Random House, which is the biggest publisher right now, I see 3 different reps, and then...
Do they literally come to the store? I mean, let's say pre-pandemic.
They do now.
Yeah.
And then Stacy, our children's buyer, sees 2 reps just for Random House.
Wow.
And so one catalog for Random House may have 700 to 900 titles.
So those
for a season.
For one season. That's one catalog out of... And for so those markups highlight of those 700 what
those
she
reps
should
want.
pay attention to for specifically Warwick's.
So that's
correct?
Crazy.
Correct. But I also look at print runs. I look at previous track. I look at, how many books have I already seen on this topic? Is it timely? I mean, is the time right now for this? Or should it be coming out? Is it more for gift-giving time or... So there are a lot of things that go into it. I look at what other booksellers are saying about the book.
And you have bookseller meetings where you go and you talk about books once a year, don't you?
Oh, you mean like conferences?
Yeah,
Yes.
conferences for book buyers, I should say. You're book buyers.
It's really more just for the industry.
Okay.
But there's usually some either component that's related to buying or a component that's related to events only.
Right.
There's
marketing.
not some online forum where booksellers just get together and talk trash.
Oh yeah, there's
there
Facebook
is.
pages. Oh hell yeah! Oh hell yeah!
I'm not on that.
And watch out, baby. It's Joe. You don't want to piss off a bookseller. But can I just throw it out there?
It's mostly disgruntled booksellers who are venting.
Right.
Yeah. And they share. Yeah. But back to
Look out for this author.
Yeah. But back to the volume. So that shows you the sheer number of titles that are out there.
Okay, so 700 books.
In one season, one catalog.
In one season, one catalog. How many of those would you typically buy, do you think?
Maybe 88 to 100.
Okay. Wow. And that's just one. Okay, so we've got Random House. Okay, so tell us, is it the top 3 now?
It's 5. There's
still five. Okay, so what are the top 5 publishers?
So it's
in the
Random
industry?
House, Simon & Schuster, Harper that just bought Houghton Mifflin, Macmillan, Hachette, Norton, W.W. Norton, which is the last independently owned publisher of any size.
What
There are
is
a lot
it
of
called again?
W.W. Norton.
Okay.
And then there are all of the
Consortium.
other
like Grove
like
Atlantic.
IPS, which is a consortium of a lot of small publishers. Consortium, which is a group
Another one.
of many very, very small publishers. And then we have house reps. So all of the main publishers would have house reps.
Right.
Then we have what we call commission reps, and they might rep 20, 30 lines. And they're strictly paid by commission. And then there are all the university press reps.
Wow.
Yeah. We didn't
And
even
then-
talk university. Yeah.
I want to take a step back for just a second and talk about distribution and how it works. Because there's traditional distribution and then there's wholesale distribution. And a lot of the authors, we are the official podcast of the San Diego Writers Festival. Warwick's is our official partner. And a lot of our listeners are interested in, hybrid and independent. And they don't understand how books get into bookstores. So I want to explain, Simon & Schuster, they have their own distribution arm of the publishing company. But for people who don't, for smaller presses, they go through Ingram, IPS, Consortium, IPG, PW, Publishers West, or PWG. There's so many of them. So
Yeah, PGW.
PGW,
Which is
thank
part
you.
of IPS now.
Right.
Okay. So talk to us about the difference between these and your interaction with those. But first, let's explain what traditional distribution is versus wholesale.
So all of the major publishers have their own warehouses. Although some of them are using Ingram's warehouses for what they call rapid replenishment. So it doesn't take
That's long.
10 days for us to get a restock order. Most of the publisher warehouses are located obviously in the east, where real estate is cheaper and more space. So for us on the West Coast, it takes a lot longer for us to get even a direct order versus, if you're a bookstore in New York. And, keeping in mind, I know that we are approached a lot by, I call them independently published authors.
Yeah.
Who want placement or want to know how to get placement into the store. And, it's a hard battle because they're up against there's so many books being published by traditional sources. Once you've filled your 3,000 square feet.
Well, how many books do you think are published every year?
Oh.
Hundreds of thousands.
Yes.
Like 250,000.
If you include all of the independently
Published. And that's not even including self-published, which is a whole other...
Yeah.
We don't even consider the self-published. It's like, this is just like, you're talking independently published and traditional publishing. And independent is traditional to a certain extent. It's just not... people get kind of...
Confused.
When they,
Well, the distinction for me is if you've paid anybody to publish your book, that's self-published.
And then there's, I think of it a little differently. There's independent publishing for me, which is to me, you're independently publishing your book, but you're doing it right.
Correct.
Self-publishing to me is you're doing it yourself and typically doing it wrong. You're not going to have a good cover. It's not going to be edited. But a lot of indie authors maybe create their own press, but they use professionals to help them do it right.
Well, and it also has to do with what you said, distribution.
And getting distribution is the crux.
is the key to it, no matter how it's produced. And one of the things, I know we're jumping around a little bit.
We are, but we'll go back.
But what we're talking about too, what she brings into the store has to be a good product that Warwick's is proud to put on the shelf.
And you only have so much space.
We only have so much space. So you want that product,
right?
Whether it's independently published or traditionally published, and I'll use Jennifer, to your independently published categorization. It's got to be a good product. It has to be something that if somebody's going to find it on our shelf, that Warwick's is like, okay, that's,
Well, I go beyond being a good product. there has to be a market for it.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
Beyond your
Beyond
friends
that,
and
yes.
family.
Yes.
You know, and I've said in a different way, but it's like to people, who's your market?
Yeah.
What's your end game? If you just think it's going to be of interest to your friends and family, then just print it at Kinko's and give it away, or go online and use one of the the great little print options.
Print on demand,
and just give it to them. It's like, you know, your friends and family might think your story's amazing, but that might be an audience of 10. You know, and again, you're competing with thousands of books
Hundreds
that
of
have gone
thousands,
the traditional route. Agent, you know, gets sold to a house. It has the publishing company's marketing and graphic design and packaging expertise and experience behind it. And so they finish, you know, it's a nice finished product.
Right.
And you can't be anxious if you want to go that route. It is a time-consuming
Absolutely.
route.
Correct.
But your end result, if you do think that it is something you want the general world to see, is worth the patience
Right.
to get it there.
And just to be blunt, in the 33 years I've been at Warwick's and the 20-some years that I've been the buyer, I've seen a lot of self-published books. And I would say probably maybe 1% actually worked and could have possibly been picked up. In fact, we had one that was picked up by a professional, or, you know,
Traditional house.
a traditional house. Because I presented it to my rep and I said, you know, we've been selling hundreds of copies of this. I think there's a
Wow.
market for this.
Wow.
That's one.
Yeah.
But the other thing to go back to, too, is that, and don't forget, the bookstore is a business.
Totally.
So we're not just a showcase. So we have to, so going back to distribution, like you spoke about,
Yeah.
that book that comes through from an independently published group, which might be the audience that's listening, we have to be able to source that through how we normally, we can't be doing these side, like, oh, it's a consignment. Oh, it's this. It has to go through one of our main channels of who we get
Someone
our books
we already
from.
have an account with.
And
Right.
like Ingram is a daily order. You know, if it's some other of the smaller ones, it might not get replenished as quickly.
Well, and I like your comment about we're a business. It's so funny. I think a lot of times people think that the book industry, which is in the retail segment, somehow we should be less interested in making money. And, you know, a lot of times they'll approach us, well, you know, we're your good customers, or,
Yeah.
you know, we want this, you know, you're our community resource, which we want to be. But in order to remain the community resource, we need to be profitable.
Absolutely.
And, you know, when I'm buying, I'm always buying for placement. Where is this going in the store?
In the store. How many books are in your store at any given time, do you think?
Right
Titles.
now, probably about maybe 17 to 20,000 different
Wow.
titles. And I look at it as dollars.
Yeah.
Every placement in the store to me is
Is a dollar.
And, you know, I just had an appointment with one of my Random House reps, and, you know, there were some things that, you know, he thought I should buy, and I just said, you know, I don't know where I'm going to put it, where it's going to find. I'd rather put a stack of something that I'm fairly certain will sell versus taking up that space, which is limited, for a title that I have no idea
Yeah.
who the audience, if we have the audience for it. And sometimes you have to make those choices based upon what's going to sell.
Because it truly still is discoverability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, you want what's in your store to people to walk by. I mean, yes, we have booksellers that will hand sell, you know, that, but it's discovery. So where the placement is and people coming in, general person just walking in,
Yeah.
you know, that's where the vast majority of our sales come from.
Oh, absolutely. I walk into a bookstore and I can't wait. It's like candy. I'm like,
Right.
oh, all these beautiful
Exactly.
covers. And
Exactly.
And I'm sorry, but people do judge a book by its cover.
oh, yes, they do. Yes, they do. 100%.
It's got to have a great cover or something about it that just makes you, you know, it's like, oh, unless it's a bestseller or a name that you're,
Sure.
familiar with.
Sure. But it's
You
still
know.
going to have a good cover if it's a
Right.
bestseller.
Correct.
Well, let's sidetrack for just a second. Trends in book covers. Book cover design has really changed a lot in the last 10 years. Right now, if it has a flower on it, it seems like it's going to be a bestseller. Like, talk to us about your experience with like just watching the book cover trends.
Oh, I think that they have 3 designers, and they all meet up on a regular basis and go, okay, this month or this season, everything's going to be red.
And graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everyone's like, what is Chip Kidd doing this season?
yeah. I mean, I'll sometimes because we have we put a lot of our new release hardbacks in our front windows, and I'll look and I'll go.
They all look alike.
They all look the same. How did we get from 7 different publishers? How did we get 6 books that all have red covers?
Yeah. It's
Right
uncanny.
now.
It really is uncanny. And the trends in because you think about going traditional publishing, how many years it's been since that date was going to be planned.
Yeah, that
for
was
that
2 years
book to
ago,
come.
right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there will be 5 books out on, one particular segment of a genre.
Yeah.
It's like, how did that happen in the same season?
It is like clothing.
It is. It's really interesting.
And if I see one more historical about World War II with a woman's back or sitting on a suitcase,
On the suitcase. The suitcase
or
is a big one.
headless, they used to all be headless
yeah.
for a long
But now
time.
there's a little bit of a profile happening.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
But it's true.
come on.
Yeah.
But that's what defines the genre.
Oh
Right.
boy.
But it's so funny, like when I talk to people about book design, I'm like, it has to fit squarely in the genre. And that's what we mean. It
Yeah.
looks like what it is. You
Right.
look at it and you go, oh, yeah, that's historical fiction. It's
Right.
probably about World War II.
Right.
Well, and then
And a
they've been
suitcase.
doing this thing with what I call clip art.
Right.
So
The
they'll have
graphic,
this
yes.
great cover image, and then superimposed will be this what looks like a clip art silhouette of somebody, like a woman, if it's a mystery. And it's like, and I do this exercise with my reps. I say, cover that silhouetted image. It's a much stronger cover. It's like, why?
Why?
You don't have to be
What was-
literal about everything.
What was the one that was like that took every single? It had the mountains, the horse.
Oh, the one.
The shack.
No, Whiskey When We're Dry. We
Yes.
love that book. And they
Yes.
changed the cover on the hardback had this great cover.
Had a great cover.
This is another trend I'm seeing. It used to be that they would never change the cover. Now, if they don't see the sales they think they should have seen, they think it's the cover.
So they changed the trade.
So they'll change the trade paperback, which drives me crazy because a lot of times people will buy that not realizing
that
that
they've
they've
already
already
have
bought
it.
it.
Oh, my God.
Which is-
Because
Which
it's
is
so
another-
different.
which is
Yeah.
another like.
I've actually
on
done
purpose.
that.
Right.
Yes.
I'm actually one of those people.
Or the movie comes out and they do the same thing.
The
They put the
movies- oh,
actors
the
on the
mov-
cover. And
those
you're
are
like,
the
oh, damn
worst.
it. Now I own 3 Dunes.
And now they even change the title occasionally.
Yeah.
Now
To
that's not
because
okay.
the movie title had changed.
Oh.
And it's like, why are you changing the title?
Yeah.
And I'll look at it even when I'm looking at it in the catalog to buy it. I'm like,
Slightly
is this
familiar.
an original, a paperback original?
Yeah.
And then I'll look down in the markup and I'll see, oh, it was previously titled, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. It's. So
And-
go back to your original thing before we started this.
Yeah,
Where like there's
this is
some
pretty fun,
magic. Where there's some magic or like there's no one right answer.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody can like find that magic bullet
Yeah.
that's going to make you this bestseller or make you get into a store.
Yeah.
It's so much, and this is a horrible thing to say, but a lot of it is timing and luck.
Yeah.
And it happens to be, I mean, this is bad too, but like for events, for me, I don't know if you do this, but it's my mood. I mean, 2 people can come back at me with the same thing, and one day it might be like, no, I'm not doing that. And the next day it's like, oh yeah, I guess we could do that.
I guess I'll do that. Depends on traffic headed to work, whether or not you're going to get a good answer from Julie.
I try not to.
It's so true.
I'm sure at some points that, my mood does affect what I buy, or for me, it's more about my relationship with that particular rep, which is so crucial. I have 1 or 2 reps where I would be more than okay with them doing just putting their suggested numbers in, and there may be
'Cause it's
a 1% variation.
Wow.
even the quantities.
Wow. Now-
I have other reps that if they tell me yes, it's
You
like,
say
no.
it's a no. But see, this is fascinating because you have relationships with these people that help you make these decisions, and that's part
And
of
it's trust.
the
Yes.
machine, and it
And
is
it's trust.
trust.
Julie and I say all the time, this business is all about relationship and trust.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I've worked with some of these reps for, 20 years.
Yeah.
So there's that continuity too. There's that thread of, because I think sometimes in order to build trust, you also have to have time.
Sure.
And if you're constantly working
33 years.
with a new rep, it's hard to develop that.
Yeah. Yeah, and they have to put in the time and come visit and get to know you and what your likes are. Pay attention to, one of the things I love about, I would say all indie bookstores do this, but Warwick's does it really well, is certain readers, your booksellers, are readers, and they recommend books.
Yeah.
So I know if Julie recommends this book, I'm going to love it because
Right.
everything Julie recommends, I love.
Right.
So that's trust too, right?
Correct.
Complete trust.
That's a relationship.
And that's to me where when you're a bookseller on the floor, it's so fun to create those relationships. I was only on the floor for a year at Warwick's, not even a year, like 10 months before I did the events. But I still have a couple of customers who email me, or because I'm now email, but when I was pre-COVID, still at the store, would come. What are you reading? What do I need to read?
What do I get today?
And that was, there's that, and it's completely a trust. I don't even have to tell them what the synopsis is. It's just like, trust me, just read that one, you'll like it.
But
So-
going,
Yeah, go ahead.
digressing a bit, going back to the how to choose. There's also a difference between independent bookstores in that some are very, very general independent bookstores. So we don't come at things from a particular like philosophical or political kind of bent. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but we were just a general bookstore.
Sure,
So
like
I'm gonna
Mysterious
represent-
Galaxy is going to have...
Yeah, they're going to
Gonna-
do their
Very
thing.
genre based.
Yeah.
But there are also independent bookstores that are very, very successful and well known and very well established that are known for activism and other things like that. And
Very
so
cool. Yeah.
that's also kind of an interesting. I probably, what I buy would probably be not considered okay by some of those stores because I'm trying to represent across the
Because
spectrum.
our customer base has
Exactly.
exhibited that that's what they want to buy.
Exactly.
Sure.
So it has to do with who's coming in the doors and what they're buying. And,
And-
back to we're a business.
And do I hold my nose sometimes? Absolutely. But I can't let my
You can't love
personal-
every book.
Well, and I
Right.
can't let my
That's interesting.
personal
Yeah.
opinions
Yeah.
and feelings. And it was a particularly,
2016.
yeah. Well, but also moving into COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sort of the whole political upheavals that we've had, it made it a little more. It made it trickier to navigate your both sides, customers on both sides.
And we're seeing more of that moving into the future, aren't we?
Yeah.
As a book buyer, how do you navigate
Well, and
that?
I had a conversation just again a couple days ago, and I said, I don't see who the market is for this book. Yes, it's going to sell, but it's only going to sell to the people who agree with it. And so I would rather take that space and put something that's not political than something that, in my mind, is just preaching to the choir.
Got it.
And that
You're looking
I
for
see that
dollars.
on both sides. It's
Yeah,
like the person
yeah.
who should be reading this book is not going to pick it up.
Right, right.
So
Isn't that always the case?
Correct.
So why would I take that space for that when I can, maybe sell a book about horses or something?
No, totally. Or surfing or a
Yeah.
good mystery.
Exactly.
Something
know, World
feel
War
good,
Yeah.
Feel good. We need
Yeah.
more.
I don't know. Horses was a
oh.
little specific there.
That's because I just started reading one about horses.
Nice.
Very good. So it's fresh in my mind.
Well, okay. So I want to break it down for our listeners. And by the way, we do have a wide range, not just indie.
Right.
We have a lot of traditionally published authors who are also listeners and just readers.
Right.
So traditional distribution is really a machine where there's a sales force. They're coming to you. They're telling you what what it's going to what they think is reasonably going to sell.
There's also a big marketing force behind that.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Which
Huge
is
advertising
key.
budget. That,
So let's talk about this then.
Key.
Tell us
Key.
about this. Okay. Why? Who wants to go first? Julie.
Well, am I talking publicity?
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
talk the publicity part.
The publicity part, because when you, but see, and that's the other thing too, though. We're the bottom or the tail end of the food chain on this thing.
We're at the very bottom.
We're at the very bottom of the food chain.
I would say you're at the top, but okay.
But there's so much that happens before a book, and then once the publicity machine hits,
Yeah.
you know, and you talked about the conferences that we go to. So now think about all those hundreds and thousands of titles, and then we go to a conference that maybe 100 authors will get featured at a week-long conference. So
Out of hundreds of thousands
out
of
of
books.
hundreds of thousands of books.
Wow.
So
So
that
they're pushing these authors.
correct. So they're, you know, and it's all based on money, on what did they pay for this book.
and those booth spaces are not cheap.
Those booth spaces aren't cheap. And so what did they pay for this book? That's going to dictate how much they put into it on the publicity and the marketing and what kind of tour they're going to pay for that author to do.
Wait, let me stop you a
Yeah.
minute. So if you're looking for an agent, you get signed, and then someone offers you $10,000, turn it down, look for something bigger. Because your book's never, I mean, that's really,
kind of-
they're
I mean-
telling you, meh,
You need 6 figures or nothing.
we'll put you on the shelf, but
Kind of.
The-
I
the-
mean,
yeah, the
it's-
best thing is if your book goes to auction.
yeah,
Correct. And now there's so much going on in the world of junior editors. If you follow Twitter at all in the book world, there's just so much dissent that's happening. So how
there is.
there
yes.
is, and
That's a whole nother
That's a whole
conversation.
other conversation, and the whole query
Yeah.
thing that's happening, and getting an agent. But there's never been just one answer, and now it's even harder. I mean, people that have published traditionally 3 to 5 years ago, it's a whole different ball game today than
Why?
it was. It just has changed.
Well, there's so many ways you can publish now.
Right.
So when I first started out in the industry, we called self-publishing vanity publishing
Sure.
because it's exactly what
That's
it was.
what it was. Yeah.
And
Now
they
that's not the
paid.
case.
You know, there were
Joy of cooking.
organizations or companies that you could pay, and they would publish your book and then promise you marketing, but not always come through.
Mm.
And I would get books in the mail from these, like Vantage, I think was one of them. They would send books out with, like a little cover letter, and, and I would just like look at it and put it aside because that was never something we were going to pick up. And we used to take books on consignment way back in the day.
Mm.
It takes so much more time.
Yeah, and back to the business part of it. It just is not economical. to do
You're
that.
writing a check for, 2 copies
Yeah.
of a, $16 paperback.
Right.
So that's why we have to do everything through like an Ingram. I mean, I would say Ingram is once she does her initial buy from a publisher, she does do some publisher orders, but that aren't in a buy cycle.
Mm-hmm.
But
I do restock orders every day.
orders, yeah,
Oh, wow.
with
Yeah.
the publishers, and then through Ingram. So
Yeah.
those are really the main. And so if it's outside of that system, back to your distribution thing, it's very hard as a business to.
Well, and isn't it true? I'm sorry, I
Go ahead.
interrupted you. But isn't it true that like if you order everything through Ingram and you have a higher volume, then you get a better deal? No?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, the industry has set discount schedules. Otherwise, they would be sued.
Right. And so we have what we consider regular on the other end from where you guys are coming from on what you'll give that distributor
Yeah.
to what percentage you give on that side dictates whether we get what we call a regular discount.
Yeah,
Yeah.
standard.
A standard discount. If it's not
So-
standard, then it becomes a short discount, what we call a short discount.
So let's use an example.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a book that is independently published, and I'm encouraging the author to list it at 55% off, returnable on Ingram.
But see, that's not what we get.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You get a lot lower.
Correct.
Ingram takes a cut.
Correct.
Ingram Spark takes a cut.
Correct. So and I don't even know, we don't know what Ingram considers to us what a regular discount from your side of it would
Yeah.
be.
You don't
know
even
what I mean?
you don't even know that number.
Well, and
No.
Ingram's making money on the volume.
Mm-hmm.
So they may only get a percentage point or
Once
two.
everything's set up. Yeah.
But they're making, their money is made just strictly on the volume that they're
Passing through. Yeah.
Yeah. But going back to my point about back in the day, back in the good old days, there weren't that many options for even self-publishing.
Yeah.
You had to have money so that you could pay one of these vanity presses to publish your book.
Mm.
Now it's so easy.
It really is.
And
to do
that
it
just-
poorly.
And that just adds to the,
Volume. Just adds to the
everybody
volume.
thinks they're a writer and everybody thinks their story is important.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, I kind of celebrate that there's that much like,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
like
For sure. It's
confidence and, they want to share with the world, but
But going back to
they
what we're
wouldn't have
talking
had the choices.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the traditional and marketing. So back to your thing about if you have an agent and what you get and should you hold out. I say if somebody's offering you any money for your book, you should take it because it's unless it's an auction type of thing. I mean, if you've got 3 or 4 people that are interested, that's a different thing. If you've only got one person that's interested and they're going to offer you some money, probably take it.
Well, and it depends on how you work your contract.
Right.
True.
Like what they do in the movies. If
Right.
sometimes an actor will say, I'll take much less on the front, but I'm going to take more on the back end.
Right. And that's all a whole thing. We could have a whole agent conversation
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I'd actually like to. Not today.
No. But
that's a great idea.
So
we'll even bring in an agent.
right. So sometimes when the publishing, publicity, marketing, they will, because they spent so much money on a book, they will inundate you with it.
Right.
And it might not be a very good book.
Yeah.
Once the booksellers get it, it's just sort of like,
Oh, just because it's published by a traditional publisher doesn't mean it's good.
right. It doesn't mean it's going to be a bestseller.
Yeah.
Even though they have done this push, because the public we are the first line to the public, and so we can sometimes tell if it's good or bad, but the public will really determine if a book is going to succeed or not. And that's really the bottom line.
Well, and the way I look at it is I pay somebody to do my taxes. I could probably figure it out and do it, but it wouldn't be nearly as good. And I might make a huge mistake. There are professionals who are professional for a reason. And in the same way, so if you want to self-publish, you should pay for a good editor. You shouldn't have your friends and family read it and edit it. You need to pay for an editor. Then you also need to
Someone who actually does that for a living.
Correct. Then you should probably also talk to somebody to just tell you like a business model and plan. You need to have a plan.
Yeah.
Do you want to be the distributor of your own book?
Right.
No,
you do not.
No, you do not.
Hell no.
That is the number one question is no, you do not.
Yeah.
And when we used to take books on consignment, you would see that over and over. They'd be really excited. They'd bring you, the 10 copies or the 5 copies you were going to carry. They would literally call you every day to see how many copies it sold.
Oh, wow.
And then gradually,
They'd stop calling.
Yeah. And then, 5 years later, I'm still trying to track them down to get them to pick up their 4 books.
Well, the other thing to that point,
didn't
though,
sell.
is that I think in going back to bringing it back to like Warwick's and why people want to be a Warwick's, I also think that people have this idea that hundreds of copies of their book are we're going to stock 100 copies of their book at the store.
Really?
Or, people will think even 10's a lot.
Yeah.
For us
yeah,
to
of
take.
course. When you only have so much.
Right. But
shelf
there is
space.
the authors will come and think that we should take like 20 or 30 copies of their book. And it's just like, we'll take 2 if we're doing it that way.
Yeah.
When it's
Yeah, this isn't Costco.
yeah.
Totally.
And so then it's just, so there's an education and a perception issue too.
Well,
Yeah.
most of the books we carry in the store might only sell 1 to 5 copies.
Right.
Maybe.
Wow.
And some of them don't sell at all.
And you send them back.
And I
Correct.
send them back.
Which
And-
is just crazy.
And that's the other thing.
That's
it's like
bananas to me.
if you carry a self-published book, they expect you to carry it forever.
Right.
And it's like,
Or
no,
an idiot.
that's not how this works.
But the other thing too and why we carry books and why she chooses books and we'll have stacks on the table and return them. The publishers want that discoverability
Yeah.
that somebody might pick that up and do. So they want that volume out there of titles, and they want you to take the risk of buying 5. We'll take them back if nobody. So there is a mentality of publishing that's part of the business plan.
I was told one time by a major publishing house that I wasn't buying enough
Wow.
because my return percentage with them was 12%.
Wow.
You know,
Which I
they
think
have
good
a-
for you. That's awesome.
They have an expectation of 18. Used to be 25%. They've lowered it now. It's
Yeah.
more like 18 to 20 on average. And they told me I wasn't taking enough chances.
Huh. Interesting.
So that's a whole other.
So even though I was managing, because I look at turns, you know, and which really affects your profitability, and the cost of returning, postage costs have really skyrocketed. So
Yeah.
you know, a box
Yeah.
of returns.
And you pay for returns?
Yes.
Okay.
So a box of returns may cost me $30
Wow.
just in freight.
You can't just hand that off to the rep that comes by.
So you know,
Bring a trailer.
I want to minimize that because it's time on our end.
Of course.
It's money on our end. But publishers want.
Because they've spent so much money on those books, they want them out on a table
let
somewhere
me-
for people to look at.
Exactly. But let me ask you a question. So, an author hits New York Times bestseller. It's my understanding that that's based on how many books are shipped to bookstores. It's actual book sales.
Nobody really knows.
Oh.
First of all, nobody really knows.
I think that's a component.
But there's also a theory out there that it's an algorithm. That it is, like if it's sold through the indie channel, they'll say, let's say 10 copies sold.
They'll weight
but
it.
They'll weight
Yeah.
it. So that's really times 5. And where if Amazon sales might be minus X.
Wow.
So it's an algorithm that is weighted.
Interesting.
So there's really, nobody really knows.
Okay.
And New York Times keeps that very close to their chest on how they do it.
Interesting.
So there's no, because people try to think, oh, if I buy 5,000 copies of my
I
book,
can be a New York Times
If my
bestseller.
political action committee buys
correct,
up
hundreds
10,000.
of copies, I can get on the New York Times list. And that's why they don't really tell you how
Yeah,
it's
so
done.
they'll wait.
Huh.
They still want you to report a bulk sale to
Sure,
them,
sure.
but they
weight it.
they
that will-
factor that out in this, you know.
So you're reporting, the publishers are reporting, and then they weight it. Interesting.
Yeah.
And publishers typically pay for space, like in Barnes and Noble and big stores, like end cap space and window space, and that space is paid for.
Well,
Correct.
and we also get a co-op.
Okay. So these are
For-
co-op dollars.
But it's different.
It's
So-
different than the indie channel.
So, for instance, Hudson News, for instance, it does all the airport stores.
Yeah.
And we actually have a partnership with them at the San Diego airport. So their buyer can go to a publisher and say, we will do a display of X number of your titles in this many of our airport stores for this amount of time, and we're going to get X amount of dollars back. Because they do such volume.
It's basically paid advertising.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
They do such volume.
Yeah.
So I have co-op agreements with publishers, major publishers, but I can't go and say, I'm going to put, 5 of your titles in our front window, which I do anyway, for X amount of days, and I want,
This much money.
$5,000.
Right.
We get co-op based upon the volume.
And
that-
what we advertise, like our newsletters and things that what we're doing
And
to
events.
promote and events. So that's how we get the co-op
But
dollars
it's in proportion
Got you.
to what we're
to
selling.
so
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I don't buy my titles based upon the co-op.
Right.
See,
Right.
that's the beauty of an independent bookstore. And one of the things I tell all of my authors is, okay, don't just list an Amazon button for God's sake. And don't just list a Barnes and Noble. Put your favorite local
Can I
indie
give one
bookstore.
if for anybody's
Buy now
listening,
on your website.
Can I get,
Like, can we do this in stereo?
yeah,
Yeah, do
anyone
it.
that's listening wants an event at an independent bookstore, please do not link to me how well your book's doing on Amazon.
Oh my God, seriously.
Just
Or-
please don't.
Or provide the Amazon link as the only
Only
way
place-
to get the information
Information
about your
the book.
Wow, people do that.
all
yes.
the time.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to write a blog post
They
on
do
that.
the same thing with me. They
Yeah.
want me to carry the book, and
And here's a link to Amazon.
They don't give me
Yeah.
the title or anything. Here's the link to my
Yeah.
It's like, no.
How about a little more effort here?
Yeah.
It's
Well, they
just,
don't understand that Amazon is our biggest competitor.
Well, and it's so hard to compete with Amazon
well,
because they
it's not even
undersell.
well, it's like, but it's nobody wants to. What is it? It's the single biggest threat to any retail business is Amazon.
Yeah.
Oh, even
Any
cat
retail
food.
business.
Any.
Yeah. All of it.
So,
Yeah.
and your tax dollars and where you spend your money matters.
I think I heard recently that Jeff Bezos is $81 billion richer since the pandemic.
Yes. Correct.
That's nuts.
But so back to, and people
I'm making
who,
this political,
and people
aren't
who,
I?
Yeah, no, that's okay. But people who want to have events at the store or have us carry their book, I ask, why when all you
Have
do,
a marketing plan.
when all you do on your website and your social media and everything
Is
linking
Amazon.
to Amazon.
Yeah.
And I get that the rankings are huge and all that matters and this and that, but then don't want to have an event with us. We don't mind.
And here's
If all you want to do is do Amazon, that's
fine.
fine. That's
right.
fine.
But here's a tip that a lot of authors don't know. Their book, they can link to Warwick's.
Correct.
Because you have every single book that's available through your distributor.
Which is through Ingram. Correct.
If their book is available, even through wholesale,
Correct.
you can link to Warwick's and you'll buy that book to sell.
Correct.
Well, and
If someone places an order.
Correct.
in fairness to self-published authors, they're not the only ones that do that.
No. Yeah.
And it's so annoying with even the big name best-selling authors.
Oh, we fight this battle with the publishers on the
Really?
publisher's
Yeah.
site.
Yes.
When you go to a
Really?
publisher's site and you look up a book from a pub like Simon and Schuster, the first one there is they buy the book at Amazon. So this is not just independent.
culture. It's what we've
It's a
done.
culture. It's a cultural thing, but your expectation to a store like Warwick's and wanting to either carry your book or have an event or whatever, it's like we only have so much time and so much space to do things.
Yeah.
And so we have to make our choices. So if it's not just a one-off for us, so why are we, why do you want to do this?
Well,
with
and
us?
we're going to sell your book and give you placement in the store, but we're going to sell your book at your suggested retail price. We are not looking at your book as some
Don't devalue it.
exactly. And
Yeah.
it's to me, it's like I wouldn't go to I don't know what's a good place that sells a great hamburger. Let's say Burger Lounge.
Shake Shack.
I wouldn't go to
go
Burger
local.
Lounge with my little bag of McDonald's,
McDonald's.
hamburgers
Yeah.
and expect to be seated at a table.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
it kind of
So
is
it's,
the
Well
same
put.
thing.
yeah. And so
Yeah.
it really is, ask yourself why you want this.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're going to do in our little store, I mean, we're a bigger store today, but it's like, we're going to now put you in our newsletters. You're going to get in the UT's calendar. You're going to
That's
get
right.
some things. Is Amazon doing any of that stuff for you?
No.
You
No,
know?
they're actively trying to take money from you.
Correct.
Yeah. Successfully.
Correct. So that's where sometimes when we say yes or no to an independently published and San Diego local authors, that's why we did the Weekends with Locals program was to try, because we do understand that there
You
needs
do
to
a lot
be
of community.
We try really hard
Yeah.
to give people a platform, and we understand that saying that you've been at Warwick's is kind of
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal, you know. We understand that, but we're still a business, and we can't be everything to everybody.
We're not a charity.
Can
We're
you
not
give
a
me-
library.
Yeah,
We're not a museum.
That's it. You're not a library or
Right.
not a museum. Can you think of a local author who's recently come and done an event and just really sold a lot of books that you were like super proud of?
We have a kid's book that's self-published, and I can't remember the title because I'm not involved in that side of the buying.
Right.
But it was on our bestseller list for the week. We
Nice.
sold like 25, 30 copies.
Mm.
And
that's a lot.
with nothing on our part except putting it out. And
Nice.
it's a $30 book.
Wow.
Matt Coyles does really
Yeah.
well for us.
Matt does
Is he
very
independently
well.
published?
He's at Ocean View.
Okay.
So he's Ocean View. So that's one, I think, one of those hybrid ones too.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
think, but Matt
Or
does
small presses.
small press or a small press.
Well,
yeah.
I keep telling Matt he needs to go to
A bigger house.
yeah.
He's ready.
He's completely ready.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there again though, it's the patience thing.
Yeah.
It's like Matt likes having a book every. Now, if he goes traditional, he might be
It's
2
gonna
years
slow his
out.
machine
it's going to
down.
slow his machine down.
There'll be a
So,
hiatus. While,
Yeah. And so that's where that traditional publishing machine does move very slow. And back to your thing about if somebody's giving you $10,000 or whatever it is for a book, you might be the shiny penny for a while, and you're going to get all this attention, and you're going to get all of this, and then your next book, depending on how that book sells, will depend on if you're still the shiny penny the next book around.
Right.
You know,
I know we're running out of time.
Yeah.
And I have a couple more things I want to talk about. So
this is going to need to be a part 2, I think.
maybe it does. Maybe it does. But like you guys really champion debut authors.
Yes.
Can you just talk to us a little bit about why that's close to your heart?
You want to go? I'll go. Yeah. I love debut authors.
Okay.
And it's because it's something fresh and new, and giving that leg up. That's one thing that especially through the pandemic, I just wanted to help as many debut, because there is nothing probably worse than launching a book during a pandemic.
during lockdown.
During lockdown. So we did our best, but I love a debut just for, I think it's fresh. And it's something that is a
exciting.
new voice. It's exciting. And the chance that, and hey, it's the needle in the haystack. That debut may not be the next big thing, but if it does become the next big thing, there's kind of like we knew it.
You're proud of that. Yeah. You were part of that.
It was like, so yeah, I love the debut.
Like the
Debut.
mothers.
The mothers, Britt Bennett, I mean, and back in the day, Khaled Hosseini, Kite Runner, was, we had, 20 people
Oh
in
my
the
gosh, that
store
book was
for that,
amazing. Yeah.
And so sometimes it's people like, oh, we knew it was going to be big. No. There's a lot that, that has to happen for something to become big.
Yeah.
But I love the debut.
And that book was fire, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and Britt Bennett, I
Bennett.
love her.
We actually hosted an event for Amy Tan's Joy Luck Club.
Did you really?
And partly because Sandy
That's awesome.
Dykstra was her agent.
Okay.
And she
Right.
brought
That's
the
right.
manuscript to the buyer at the time
Oh,
and said, I think this is going to be big.
and she was right.
And the buyer read it. We bought the book for the store. And then it just
Skyrocketed.
Wait, another one was The Firm. Didn't you guys host Dan Brown to like 10 people for The Firm?
not the firm.
Oh, no, not
His first book.
his first book,
And
Da
why
Vinci
am I-
Code. Da
Yeah.
Vinci
Da Vinci
Code.
Code.
Da Vinci Code. Because
Yeah.
John Grisham was sorry. Boy, John Grisham hopefully is not listening to the premise right now.
I should have been on that.
No, we did.
But no, Da Vinci Code for
Yeah.
Dan Brown, because this was before
Angels
the Catholic.
and Demons. I had a bookseller that loved his first book, was selling it to everybody. And so when Da Vinci Code
Da Vinci Code came out,
we-
but we hosted him before the Catholic controversy,
Yeah.
before the Catholics got a hold of it. So there were only like 10 people.
But that helped the book because every
for
Catholic
sure.
in the
Of course it did.
world
Yeah.
went out and bought it.
bought it for sure.
There's no bad publicity, right?
Correct.
Well,
People are, well, okay.
Yeah, how'd American Dirt end up?
Actually, it's
Oh, that's
still at Costco in trade,
and it
paperback.
ends up on our bestseller list. It floats up and down on our bestseller list.
And I'm just going to say it. I loved that book.
I liked it too.
me too.
I loved it.
It's a novel.
It's a novel. It's
Remember,
fiction.
it's
Yeah.
fiction.
There's some dirty things in there we could dig up. That,
Sure, I mean,
that's not a
appropriate-
conversation for today, I
no.
guess.
Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, sorry.
Jesus.
good job,
crap.
Chad.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about it. So we're coming to the end. I have one more question. The top 3 pieces of advice you have for an author of any ilk who wants to get into your store. What are the things they need to think about?
Don't mention Amazon.
Number 1. Okay.
Number 1, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Patience.
Okay. All right.
I mean, we are inundated.
Mm.
Inundated. And
Every buyer.
every buyer
Yeah.
is in whatever store. And know why do you want to be there?
Mm.
Why is it important
Is
for
it just
you
to say you're on the shelf?
right? Why
Yeah.
is it important for you to be in Warwick's?
Mm.
And it's I know it's hard to educate, but you have to come into the store and see what we have and what we do. And does your book fit in that?
Yeah. Where do you see it?
Where do you see it?
That's the number 1 piece of advice I give people is define your bookshelf.
right.
Correct.
Where's your bookshelf?
Where's
And what
your-
are the 4 books on the shelf with your book?
Correct. Walk around our store. Where do you see your book
Yeah.
in
Well,
this?
Well, and the thing we talk about a lot between us is start going to writing workshops.
Yes.
Like workshop it with other writers.
Mm.
You'll learn so much. I think we get so many people that just think they don't need to do any of that.
Right, right.
And everything, if you're meant to do this and you've got a story to tell and you've got the skill to do it, it's still going to require practice, education. It's not like you're just going to, here it is. It's with any skill, you've got to do it and put in the time to do it well and to do it
And that's
right.
why, I mean, I don't have, whether it's independent or traditional, you have to have a team behind you.
Yeah.
Whatever that team is, whether it's a bunch of...
And that doesn't mean your mother. Sorry.
And it happens a lot. It happens a lot. My wife, I get that a lot. My wife is an excellent editor.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the thing that to Adrian's point is people do think that it's like, I've written this, you're a bookstore, therefore you must.
Right,
And
right.
it's like going back to, we're a business.
Do you guys appreciate sell sheets? That has all the marketing details and everything behind it. And
Personally?
Yeah.
No. I don't know
Really?
about you.
interesting.
I don't have enough time to read them all.
Got it.
Yes and no. I mean, they have a purpose.
I mean, they show some initiative, some professionalism for
Right.
me.
Right.
I mean, honestly, and it goes back to honestly,
I think it's less important for you.
less important for me,
Yeah.
more important for you, but for me,
For you, it's like a markup, right, Adrian?
a little
Okay.
bit, yeah. A cover.
You want the cover.
Like I
Yeah.
want the cover.
Good covers.
Cover,
Great covers.
title, and cover and title,
the
and
pertinent information.
right, and what that cover looks like can determine a lot.
Yeah.
It really can, and I go back to the product too a little bit. It had, when you look at a shelf of books, you can pick out the ones that aren't professionally done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You
You can
so
spot 'em a
you can
mile
spot them
away.
a
Yeah.
mile away.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we are limited at what we can do and bring in.
Well, and if you come into the store, which I encourage people to do, you'll see that we don't have every inch of space is being used. And
Right.
then don't cold call and go into a store and expect the buyer or the events person to just drop everything and come out and have a conversation with
we
you.
that's what
to
we
give
get
you
our
free
worst-
advice.
Right. We get our worst Yelp reviews in that. I've gotten a horrible Yelp review because I said, I really need you to email. I went and stood in front of her and she told me to email her. It's like, yeah, because I have an event with 500 people coming in 10 minutes.
So,
I can't talk to you right now.
I recommend that these people join an organization like Independent Book Publishers Association
Yes.
and get all those answers in
Yes.
advance so that when you go to your book buyer, you're prepared.
Do your homework.
With
Do
the
your
professional book.
We're not. We try to educate, but if we spent all of our time educating people, we would not have time to do our jobs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and I discourage cold
Cold
calling.
in general, I don't think anyone likes it. I don't think my grandma likes to be
Can you go
cold
to your
called.
lawyer and just like walk in and go, hey, Chad, I need to discuss
Well, and then
something.
Let me pick your brain.
Don't email and then follow up with 5 phone calls because someone didn't respond to your email. I mean,
Like I said, patience.
you
patience.
and I
Patience.
probably get on
Oh,
average
100 a day?
100 emails a day.
That have some kind of action.
That's it?
I feel your pain. I
Yeah.
do think email is the bane of my existence.
It is.
It is.
It is.
Especially if I get 20 emails from one person
From one
with
person.
20 different questions.
Right.
It's like, oh, and this and oh, and that. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Please put them in one email and send them
Please,
tomorrow.
and learn what a thread is.
Yeah.
Reply all.
If I had $1 for every email I've gotten from somebody who said, I'm a great customer of yours.
Oh.
And then I go look them up in our frequent
And they've
buyer,
never bought.
Because you have that
and they
info.
haven't been in the store, like in 10 years.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. It's a lot.
Wow.
Distribution is a big deal.
So distribution, a polished book, know your audience. I mean,
Know
that's
your
really
audience.
know who
Yeah.
your buyers are and be polite. I think what this comes down to is
Right.
people, you said it earlier, Julie, don't just expect because we're a bookstore and we have shelf space that we're going to take your book.
Right.
We're all in this business to make money.
Right.
And so do it smartly
Yeah.
and with patience.
And Amazon might be the best place for your
and it
book.
might be. Yeah.
Amazon might actually be the best place for your book.
Bookstores are not the only places to sell books.
Correct. Like I said, you might Warwick's might not be the place to sell your book.
This goes back to know your audience. Well, you heard it here, folks. Ladies, thank you so much
This
Thank
was really
you.
fun.
for being on the premise. The official partner of the San Diego Writers Festival, which, by the way, dear listener, is October 8th of this year, in person, in Coronado. We are so excited.
bravo.
I know.
Yeah.
We did it. I can't even believe it, actually. We did 2 years of hybrid. We made it through this pandemic. We still like each other. I mean, there's a lot of things to be proud of. Chad, any final notes?
No.
No jokes to end the day?
I got nothing.
I think we've.
I mean, mostly we still like each other, right?
Yeah, mostly. Well, thank you again so much for coming out and being here in person and answering all these questions. They're really important for authors to know and understand the industry, where you're headed. Because I always look at it as like an end game. And I think one of you said that in the very beginning. What's your end game? Then you work backward from there, and make good choices. Dear listener, you can learn more about Warwick's and buy books from them online at warwicks.com. This has been another episode of The Premise. Visit us online at thepremisepod.com. Follow us on Twitter at podpremise and subscribe and rate us wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, thanks for listening. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Hey folks, this is Jennifer, and as you know, The Premise is the official podcast of the San Diego Writers Festival, which, by the way, is happening this October 8th, in fact, 2022. It's going to
Live and in person.
Yeah, live and in person. I'm really, really excited. We have so many exciting things happening, so many exciting speakers. They're coming in from all over, and we want you to be there. So Coronado Public Library, the 4th annual San Diego Writers Festival.
San Diego Writers Festival.com.
You can subscribe to learn more about our programming and get on the list to win free books and all kinds of cool stuff happening. So
San Diego Writers Festival.com.